play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, S-I-C-K, S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. CF Montreal Talk.
Here's the chance, they've got the goal! Absolutely incredible! Cameron Porter delivers the goal to send Montreal Impact into the CONCACAF Champions League semi-final.
The sickest CF Montreal podcast. Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Bittt. Embrace your true nature. Innov Sport.
De collaborer avec Innosport, une compagnie d'ici, afin de dynamiser l'apprentissage et la pratique du sport pour tous et partout.
Les différents produits permettent de rester actif tout en développant sa confiance, son autonomie et sa technique. Des produits efficaces, progressifs et personnalisés avec le logo de votre école.
Innovsport, pour tous et partout.
And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal talk on this Monday, October 7. Once again, Sick Pod CFMTL brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, by Bittt Tibi, by Playground, and Patrice Bernier's Innovsport. You know, once upon a time, Pat used to be a regular collaborator on the Sick Podcast CF Montreal talk. And I'm sure you've noticed that over the last couple of weeks, maybe even over a month, he hasn't been there on Mondays. Why? Well, there's a reason to that. Patrice Bernier has been taking a course on Mondays, but it seems like today there is no course. So he shot me a text message, and it was with so much pleasure when I received that text message. I was so happy to know that he was going to be available for the Sick Podcast CF Montreal talk today. Without further ado, let's bring him in. Former member of the Montreal Impact, le numéro 8, number 8, Patrice Bernier. Patrice Bernier. Patrice Bernier. Patrice Bernier. No Robert Tanguay, I am not, but there's only one Robert Tanguay. But Patrice, comment ça va? How are you?
How's it going, Tony? Yeah, it's been a little while. I didn't know there were so many Tonys in your basement.
So listen, hey, let me ask you, what course are you taking? Are you taking a coaching course? Are you taking an agent's course? What are you taking? Because I've heard different things on the street.
No, the agency, that's not for me. That definitely I will. You will never see me maybe help people out, but not be an agent. No, I'm taking a coaching course that is usually European based, so I have to do it early in the morning. That's why I said that I couldn't make it on the Mondays, but this particular Monday I do not have a meeting, so I was available. So continue on my own journey, but now definitely be able to chat a bit with you about what's going on with the CF Montreal and maybe some MLS news.
Fantastic, Pat. Unfortunately, CF Montreal laid an egg on the weekend in Charlotte, but deserve a lot of credit because this is a team that many of us, myself included, at one point, probably about a month ago, took a look at the standings and said, I don't give them much of a chance. The Mercado came around. There were several players that were out. There were several players that came in. And there were many of us, myself included, that said, I think with 9 games left in the season, it's going to take too much time for the chemistry to gel, for this team to come together. Gabriel Gervais told us that he thought his team after the Mercado had a better chance to make the playoffs / play-in. I didn't think so. And as it stands, I think Gabriel Gervais is looking pretty good. And I think he's right. The team right now, as we speak, are 9th in the play-in. Let's bring up the standings after the game. We'll bring them up right away. And there you have it. Okay. And the reason why what you're seeing right now, what you're seeing on screen, if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitter, that I don't have the first 3 teams in there because the first 3 teams is not in question. The standings cannot change. But with 1 game left and Orlando in 4th, 2 points ahead of New York City FC in 5th, an Orlando loss coupled with a New York City FC win, New York City FC could actually jump into 4th. Charlotte have 48 points, 2 points behind New York City FC. A New York City FC loss coupled with a Charlotte win, and Charlotte can jump into 5th. The Red Bulls have 47 points, 1 point behind Charlotte. With, a win from them and a Charlotte loss, they can jump over Charlotte. DC United has the 8th spot for the play-in with 40 points, a -15 differential. They have 10 wins. CF Montreal also have 10 wins and 40 points with a -18 differential. The tiebreaker in the play-in, if we can bring it up and show it to you, is total number of wins is the number 1 tiebreaker. Goal differential is the number 2. Goals for are the number 3. I don't think we have to get into 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 because I don't think it's going to get to that point. But now let's go back to the standings again. As you see, Montreal and DC United have the same amount of wins, 10. DC United has a better goal differential, -15 instead of -18. So there you have it. Those are the biggies right there. Toronto, their season came to an end when Inter Miami scored a late goal to beat them in Toronto. They have officially been eliminated. Philadelphia's in 11th. They are 3 points behind Montreal with a game left. Atlanta, 3 points behind Montreal with a game left. Why don't we bring up now the remaining schedule for these teams so we can have a better idea of what the challenges are? I got this chart off of Twitter, by the way, courtesy of our buddy Mathieu Charon of Group 1642 Montreal. So merci beaucoup, Mathieu, to put this up because I used it during the podcast. DC United will play at home versus Charlotte. Montreal will play at home versus New York City FC. Philadelphia will play at home versus Cincinnati. And Atlanta will play on the road versus Orlando. The percentages of the teams making the play-in, DC at 83%, Montreal at 73%, Philadelphia at 33%, Atlanta at 10%. Once again, all these games will be played on Saturday, October 19, MLS Decision Day, with most games at 6 p.m. Eastern, and whichever ones are on the West Coast will be at 9 p.m. on the West Coast, their time. So, Pat, before we get to the game, taking a look at the standings and the schedule, you have to like Montreal's chances, even though New York City FC has given Montreal problems over the years, I think you have to like Montreal's chances.
Yeah, definitely. When you look at it, they are in the position of playoffs right now. And I can't say in driver's seat, but you're playing a home game, which you probably would prefer in the state that they are, and also the way they've had collected points on the road lately. Things are in their feet or in their hands, if you want to say. And as you mentioned, if you look at the other teams who they're facing, Philly, great team, but they're playing Cincinnati at home, and Cincy travels better than their home record this year. And then, of course, there's Atlanta. They're playing Orlando. Orlando is probably the hottest team in the Eastern Conference if you're not named Inter Miami. So right now, things, when you look at it, very positive and potential to make the playing, where several weeks or months ago, we thought this season was doomed, and now they're in a position of making potentially the play-in and a step into the playoffs.
The Sick Pod CF Montreal podcast, of course, is brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America. They are driven to be different. Pat, if we can forget for 1 second CF Montreal's 2-0 loss in Charlotte on the weekend. The game before that, 3 days before, they went to Atlanta and won 2-1. 3 days or 4 days before that, they beat San Jose 3-0 at home. The week before that, they beat Chicago 2-0 at home in Montreal. 3 days before that, they tied New England 2-2 in New England after going down by a score of 2-0. And 4 days before that, they beat Charlotte by a score of 2-1. This is a team that had 4 wins and 1 tie in their 5 games prior to Saturday night's loss. If I could ask you, out of all the things that you attribute to the turnaround and the 4 wins and 1 tie in that 5-game span before the loss on Saturday, out of all the things, if you could choose one, what would you attribute the turnaround to?
Turnaround, most likely probably Samuel Bittt having a team activity, trying to rekindle some of this group that's been scattered a bit in terms of the results. Had a good time. I think they had the foot golf also that week we attended. Things that maybe reduced or took your mind off the pressure of not winning, not performing. I think that helped. And
that's a great answer, by the way, because not many people that are going to give you that answer. And Pat, it couldn't have come at a better time. And let's be honest, okay? I had said that, based on what I was hearing and based on what I was seeing, that it was getting clicky. And when you lose more of your games, it's got the tendency to go in that direction, correct? Clicky from the staff, clicky from the players. I think Piet definitely recognized that. And then good for him, as what good captains do, to get a pulse of that room as to say, what's going on here? And he probably said, we need to be closer. We need to be tighter. and he's the architect behind those the karting, that is.
Yeah, because look, I'm gonna say I lived the same situation. 2014, we were poor, and I had Marco Di Vaio, Matteo Ferrari, myself with experience, a bunch of players with experience, Troy Perkins, Zasun Kamara, and you always think it's gonna turn around, it's gonna turn around, it's gonna turn around. But when you're not winning, one goal, one bad play, one negative moment, everybody goes down. What you need, and what happens is, what do most coaches do when you lose? We need to work more. We need to work more. Everybody's even harder on you, putting more weight. And sometimes what I learned by 2015 was you need to take away the weight that you have, because you're in training every day. Everybody's telling you you're not good enough, you're not playing well enough, and the coaches are making decisions trying to stir the group. Well, sometimes you just need to go and have a little bit of fun, if you could say, to take your mind off it. And then you realize, the guys that you keep going to battle, because people forget there's 11 starters, but there's like 25 people on the team vying for 11 spots. So you're in competition with the guys that are your own teammates. But when you go in and you rekindle a bit of, at the beginning of the year, remember when we said, man, this team got these wins on the road, which we did not expect. Why? Because they built it during the preseason, but they didn't maintain it during the year. And I believe that some of that, Samuel Pitt made a good move. They had the foot golf the days before. While even the staff, I think the coaching staff was, you know what? Some days where I don't have to think about or answer questions of why he's not playing, who should I put together, who's going to make me win. And slowly they got a good result. Confidence came back, and then we know they got like 4 wins and a loss in the last 5 games, which is, I don't think we expected, even though the schedule is favorable to them.
All right. So I asked you to choose one thing to attribute the turnaround. And you said the team bonding that they did with the events, with the karting and the foot golf. Perfect. So now let me ask you, and I'll bring up something and ask you if you think that could be another one.
Yes.
Could Laurent Courtois calling out Joseph Martinez in the media and telling the media that I'm okay with you until you betray me? Those were big words. And then added, the player I spoke to when he came over and what I'm seeing now, it's not the same thing. And all of a sudden, Martinez explodes. Whether it was a wake-up call, whether both put a little bit of water in their wine, whether Martinez and Courtois talked things over, whether they didn't, and Martinez said, you know what, screw him, and I'm going to play for me, and I want to have my contract exercise next year, and if it's not going to be here, it's going to be somewhere else. Who knows, right? Only they know, right? Could that be another one?
Yeah, but we mentioned it when we had with Ali and we were here, and I said, players like Martinez, they're different. You can't treat them the same, because for one, he's a number 9 forward, thinking of scoring goals. Sometimes they're not happy because the team won, but they didn't score. And we all know who, and I told you, in Atlanta, what you're seeing is the same guy. So if you know Joseph Martinez, and it's not saying he's a bad guy. I mean, as a competitor, he's a guy who wants to score goals, and he's unhappy. And now he's 32. He understands his body. He got through injuries and certain things he might not want to do in training, because you can't treat the guy who's 30, 31, 32 the same as the guy who's 20, 21, 22, even though your team is very young and second youngest in the league. And maybe, and I'll give to Laurent Courtois, because he said, I maybe shouldn't have said what I said publicly, and speak face-to-face to say, you know what, I expect more from you. And I believe, as I mentioned, Sam Piet did his job, but he needed other veteran players, experienced players to say, hey, we need to step it up, because it's not just going to be one guy who's going to help this young team go forward. Raheem Edwards, even though people maybe not like his performance, but he's present. He's feisty. He comes in. Joseph Martinez stepped it up. And you mentioned, which is good that you mentioned Martinez, because look at his body language during games. Before it was hands up, my God, turn around. Now it's clapping, guys. Good attempt. I could see your intentions. And what do you hear from Laurent Courtois? He's got contagious energy. Joseph Martinez is influencing the rest of the team. So he's a personality player, one of those players that they can bring you high and they can bring you low if things don't go so well. And they've managed to turn it around with him. And I'll add that Caden Clark, his position, his style of play up front creates things not just for Joseph Martinez, but for this team in terms of movement and maybe a bit more danger in depth, that now the attack is more dangerous. And I told you, this is a league of attack. You can have the worst defense, but if you're able to score 2 goals a game, you're going to get more results than everything. And lately, the defense is allowing, 1 goal a game? And the attack is scoring 2-point-something goals a game? And it shows why the results are positive, because now the defense has a breather. They're feeling that not every mistake they make will cost them the game because the attack is producing.
The Sick Podcast CF Montreal Talk is brought to you in part by Bittt Tibi, who launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for cool fall days. Only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, and 4% ABV per can. Available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and ultra refreshing. I hate to do this. I've always been someone that when I ask a question, it's one answer. It's not 2, it's not 3, it's not 4. I asked you a question, if you can choose one thing. So now I hate to do this because I think it's a combination of things that came together. Number one, in no particular order, by the way, was Joseph Martinez decided to put it in 5th gear. Okay. Number 2, the group bonding events that they had. Number 3, finally consistency in the lineup of the starting 11.
I think that's number 1.
This was, you know what? And I asked you the question because I was looking for you to say that was the number 1 thing, okay? But you said it now, okay? So now I want to show you the starting 11 on the weekend. Let's bring it up. Sirois in goal, a back line of Waterman, Campbell, and Corbo. Saliba and Piet in front of the back line. Marshall Ruddy at right wing back. Edwards at left wing back. Clark and Duke behind Sanusi Ibrahim. Corbo came in for Alvarez. Sanusi Ibrahim came in for Martinez. Pat, I know that this was their 3rd game in a week. I know that players get tired, and I know that Martinez doesn't have young legs anymore. But, Pat, if you were coach and you and I agree that the number 1 thing to attribute the turnaround has been consistency in the starting 11. A starting 11 that has seen the 2 guys behind Martinez click with him, even Saliba click with him as a number 6/number 8. Martinez, who had scored 5 goals in the previous 3 games, 2 versus Chicago, 2 versus San Jose, the goal versus Charlotte. I mean, the list goes on and on. Why was Martinez not playing on the weekend? And the answer is probably going to be freshness of legs. I will argue that there's a bunch of guys on that team that ran a lot more than Martinez over the last week. Pat, what was he thinking to take him out of the lineup and put a guy who, albeit has had a good season when he's played, but hasn't been in the lineup for how long, Sanusi?
No, I agree. We all know the merry-go-round of terms of the number 9 position has been something that we talked about all year long. Now, I wasn't, when I saw this change, I said I expected that 1 in the 3 games that there will be other players in the lineup. What actually I'm happy about is before it was 4 or 5 guys put into the lineup.
Yeah, remember when he changed 5 in New England? He changed 5.
Yeah,
and they looked very, very flat in the first half. Yeah,
exactly. Your chemistry is difficult. I remember having a conversation with Jim Curtin where he said he tried that in the past and he realized I cannot go more than 3 because I realize I'm losing the nucleus of my team and the chemistry of the others. Even though they train well, they don't play together on a regular basis. So him changing 1 or 2 players for freshness. And like I mentioned, you got to realize that Martinez has several knee injuries. He's over 30.
He's hot like the fire, though. They took
I know,
the hottest player in the league.
But you have to remember that when he was hot in the league in May, or if I think it's April, where he was just starting to get his groove, he got injured. And you lost him for 2 months or 3 months.
In practice.
So I presume that this was a calculated risk. Maybe talking to Martinez, look, I know I was at that stage when you're past 30 And I mentioned to you, when you talk to older players and you're clear with them saying, look, we got 3 games. There's one we're going to have to rest you because the final game might be the key one, and we need you at your best. And I don't know if Joseph Martinez was called with the Venezuelan national team. All that could be playing in factors also. I don't think so, but you never know. So if there was a game you go, you know what, against this team, maybe bringing him on for 30 minutes or second half, he'll have freshness to change the game and we'll be able to manage the game. And they probably told themselves, we played Charlotte before, we controlled the game, we beat them. We might have a 0-0 game and Martinez might come in and change the game for us, being a bit fresher. That's the beauty that you have 5 subs. It is a question that I think it's fair to say, Tony, with the age of 5 subs, you could go, you know what, I'm going to play you the first 45 and I'll take you off the second 45 because I can change 5 players. But I think coaches being coaches, they always think, you know what, bring him when the game will be open and he can maybe make the difference. So, yeah, could he have started? Yeah, and we don't know the status. Martinez could say, look, I'm really tired. My legs are dead. And then you're like, okay, you'll come off the bench. We don't know about these internal things. But I was okay with rotating a few players. My biggest issue was they were rotating so many players every time. So how do you want to have some stability if you don't have 7 or 8 players who regularly play with each other? Because we know the forward position is one that you change often. But there's positions, center backs, center midfield, sometimes even wing backs. You know those guys are going to play 90% of the games of the season if they're not injured. And then you have the rest of the squad that you can move once in a while when you play a Wednesday game or 3 games in a trot or Leagues Cup. You can start trying things because you want to see where guys are at. So I was okay with the lineup being changed because you needed a bit of freshness and maybe tell Charlotte. And also it's playing, you're playing my games with the other coach. Yeah, this is the lineup they played last 2 games, the last 3 games. They're going to play this lineup again, and you don't. And that plays in maybe in your favor sometimes. But I was okay with Martinez not starting. I just think the team lacked offensive output, which they did in the games before.
Yeah.
Some will say fatigue. I think it's mostly ideas were not connecting on that game, and they didn't realize what the other team was giving them and what they could have utilized.
A shout out to Playground. Discover a world of luxury at Playground. Explore their 30,000 square foot expansion, thrilling games, gourmet dining, live entertainment. They're located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground. Experience the strip without the trip. Let's take a look at the timeline during the game if we can. All right, okay. At the 10-minute mark, Raheem Edwards is yellow carded. And at the 34-minute mark, there's the first goal of the soccer game, and the only goal of the first half. It's Swiderski on a blast from far that Sirois can't cover, lets out a rebound that goes off his arm, then maybe even his hand, then maybe even off his arm and leg, and it just rolls to Swiderski as Sirois tries to go for it. Swiderski slides in, and the momentum, and then the ball goes off of his knee and goes into the goal. I think it was Vandre Lefebvre, I could be wrong, who said, look, not to say it shouldn't be a goal, but if we keep on giving goals like this, then we aren't protecting the keepers, and then players are going to be a little bit reckless. Pat, I'm sorry, I didn't see it that way. I saw a ball that Sirois was unable to handle and unable to cover, and Swiderski came in, sliding in, goal scorer's instinct, poacher's instinct, boom, scoring that goal. And I think Sirois is guilty on this one, Pat. He can't let out that rebound on a shot from that far out. Your thoughts?
No, I agree. I know Vandu wrote that, but for me, when people are like, that's a foul, there's no foul. That ball's in play. Once the ball's in play, it's a 50-50 ball. It's allowed. Now, had he had put maybe his hand there before, then it would have been a different story because they would have said he would have had possession. It's all about possession. Who is naturally in possession of the ball at the time. And that ball was free of play. Karol Swiderski drove at the goalie, slid tackle, got the ball in, and scored. So, yeah, I think Jonathan, if he knows right after that moment, I could manage that rebound better or even rebound it maybe elsewhere outside, towards the outside of the goal. He probably would want to take that back. But if you're asking me if it's a goal, it is a goal. The ones who said that it wasn't a goal, once the ball has a rebound, it's fair game. And now, if goalies get injured, yes. But Tony, you've watched football. This is not the first time I see a striker slide tackle and score a goal with a goalie who gives out a rebound.
Yeah,
that's the reality that comes in. Even when players jump for the header and sometimes out jump the goalie and knock the goalie in, there's been goals that have been given in the same way before. So it's not something outrageous. It's just, yes, he should have dealt better with the shot, with the rebound, or at least, like I said, clear the rebound towards the outside of the goal.
Very shocking that CF Montreal gave Sirois the man of the match, by the way, because, like that, if that's a bad goal and that's your game-winning goal, I mean,
if I'm correct, that's a vote, no?
I don't know. I don't know. Is it a vote?
If I'm correct, normally those are people vote until
really?
I don't know if it's like at home. It's usually at the 75th minute.
Okay.
They text people who's your player of the game.
I didn't know.
Player of the game. So I don't know. And for the away games, it may be different, but I do know usually it was kind of a vote. But maybe for that one on the way, it's different. So
I know they didn't have a lot of stand-up players on that night, but I mean, I wouldn't make the man of the match the guy who was responsible for the first goal against, which ended up being the game-winning goal of the game. I thought that was a little bit odd, but love Jonathan Sirois. He's such a good guy that I'm not going to really complain more than that. All right, okay, let's go back to the timeline. I love him. He's a very hardworking player. I like it. I think he's a pro's pro. Okay, halftime, no substitutions. At the 61st minute, Montreal makes 3 changes, and Pierce comes in for Edwards, and Martinez finally comes in for Sanusi Ibrahim, who unfortunately had not done much in that game. Several substitutions as well for Charlotte. We move on more close to the end of the game, and here you have it, a couple of yellows. Montreal makes a couple of substitutions. Alvarez comes in for Corbo at the 83rd. Coccaro comes in for Duke at the 83rd. And Aguimang, who gets a pass from Bronico in stoppage time. And this pass, they recover the ball, Charlotte, with a slide tackle on Saliba, who had his legs taken out from under him. But I think the first contact was to the ball. I thought it was clean. Saliba clearly wasn't happy about it. Loses the ball loses a bad ball. And then on the counterattack, what a move that Aguimang makes on Waterman. And then his little chip finish over Sirois, I thought was an absolute thing of beauty. Talk to me about Saliba getting stripped of the ball where he did. And you talked about fatigue before and whether or not it was a factor. Saliba looked like he was running on fumes on Saturday night.
If there's a foul, no. He gets the ball. I replayed it myself. I go, maybe he gets clipped before, because you never know. Sometimes you clip the guy and then the ball pops loose. But you could see his left foot knocks the ball and then clips. So the referee deems that he's played the ball and then he took out the man. Some referees may see it differently, but and then he plays the ball. The part where I think could have, and I'm not putting emphasis, but I think Joel could have dealt with the 1v1 differently, where I think he gave Agabiang too much room to operate, where he was toe-to-toe in the race to the ball.
He danced them, man. He danced them pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think people, you get the chance to receive the goal. They're running almost pace to the ball. And then Joel's, maybe because he respects his speed with the ball, drops off and gives him 5 yards. And in football, soccer, 5 yards is a lot. Unless this guy is really blazing speed on his first few steps, which I don't think Aguian is. I think he's more of a lengthy and space type of player. And then after that, he did what he can do and finished it off well, or attracted a goalie. If Saliba was on fumes, no, I think he, we spoke. I still always think, because people go, oh man, I still tell myself, but he's born in 2004. He's 20 years old. He's now fully playing as a starter. He's going to make mistakes that maybe a 30-year-old or a 25-year-old should not make, which is your last man in the midfield, and you just have to knock the ball around. You just shouldn't be trying to dribble a guy to probably try to shoot. And I think I love the words of Laurent Courtois. He says, we did not recognize that the other opposition was in the middle, compact, and the ball needed to go out wide and whip some crosses in below or high and get people in the box. And They came inside. Nathan tried to come inside and dribble the player. He saw it. He read it, nicked the ball through, and played. So I always tell myself, and this is a judgment because of players who are young and old, but when you're 20 years old, I don't think you're on fumes when it's 3 games in a week. I think you're young. You have to manage the games and realize where you're at, what type of game, and that Samuel Piet, if I'm correct, wasn't on the field anymore. That means you are now the main guy in front of the defense because you're putting other players. If I'm correct, Duke was playing next to him. So that means you're the guy who just has to knock the ball around. You have to play Busquets. That's where he has to understand that you're not the number 8 anymore in the position. You're the number 6. So those are things he's gonna keep learning. But I remember he's 20 years old and he's doing a lot of things and he's progressed so much. But he will learn in that situation from that.
Pat, I say this on Saliba. He had a terrible game in New England until he scored.
Yeah.
And he scored a fantastic goal.
Oh, yeah, it was a golazo.
Then they came back at home and he had a couple of plays.
Yeah.
One of which was that beautiful pass to Joseph Martinez.
Yes.
The lob pass, which just sat right there for him. Beautiful. And Martinez scores a big goal. He's come up with some big plays.
Yes.
And I agree with you. He's young. Although he's getting minutes, that mistake was a mistake of inexperience at that time. I think he took the situation for granted. Boom. It was a clean strip, lost it, and all that stuff. Okay. So I know I've been on this before, and I admit I'm biased. Okay? When it comes to one player in particular, Jules Anthony Vilsain, I've told you this because I've seen him a lot. So I saw what he could do. You're going to tell me it was at another level. I could tell you that
I know. That's fair enough. You've seen
okay. Okay, perfect. I just want the same rules to apply to everyone. Everyone's young. I mean, he's a young player too. He's a 2003. The other one's a 2004. He's a year older.
Yeah.
I get the, and by the way, I don't blame Laurent Courtois one bit for having the same 11 and Jules Anthony Vilsain not being part of that starting 11, right? I'm not going to be a hypocrite here. I just told you that I think the turnaround, the number one reason is the same starting 11. And I would have, if I would have been Courtois, I would have started the same 11 that Courtois did night in, night out, night in, night out, night in, night out. I have a little bit of a hard time with Jules Anthony Vilsain goes to New England, does not play a good half. I don't think anyone's going to tell you that he did. And went from starting that game, really, we know why he started, was to give a breather, right, to the other players because it was the game in the middle of the week and the most important ones were deemed the Saturday nights at home. But went from not a good performance in that game as a starter to out of the lineup for 4 straight games. Can you try to explain that one to me? That once again, I don't argue he's not in the starting 11. I get it.
No, I understand.
Can you explain to me from going to the bench to a starter to not a good half to out of the lineup for 4 games? He's young too.
No, I understand. But the thing is, different positions, different realities, different competition. And we spoke about Jules Anthony at the beginning of the year, that in the hierarchy, if Opoku doesn't get injured in that second game against Dallas, he maybe doesn't get that shot to play and score. And he maybe is 5th or 6th in terms of the hierarchy. Players you brought in, Kokaro, Martinez, Opoku. Now the reality for him is he's in a position, and I'm taking that the carousel of players up front has been particular because he's not the only one. We saw Kokaro go in the stands. We saw a bunch of other players also who played. Even Ryan Edwards played, and suddenly he's not in the lineup. So those are things that I don't know why. Then there's choice making that goes according to the team you're playing against, maybe the week certain players had. And now that everybody's no longer injured, and I know Jules Anthony plays a game, and then you go, oh, he's not in the lineup the next game. That's very strange. I think that's where it's not Saliba and Jules Anthony Vincent. It's you're 20 years old in the midfield, and there's only 3 players. And you're 21 years old and you're up front and there's 6 players.
But hold on a second. Perfect.
Yeah.
The philosophy of the club is to play young players,
Yes.
develop them, raise their value. They'll garner interest from elsewhere around the world,
Yes.
and you'll sell them for a considerable profit. Alvarez falls into that category of a young player that they picked up for $1 million, that the more they play him, the better he plays, and the more his value will go up, and eventually he'll be sold. Saliba is a 2004 that falls into that category. Marshall Ruddy's a 2004. They went out to acquire him for those reasons. Caden Clark is a young player. They went out to acquire him for those reasons. Caden Clark's always there. Marshall Ruddy's always there. Saliba's always there. Alvarez was not there last game, but before that, for a big chunk, he was there.
Yeah.
I just don't. It just seems to be the.
No, I think
I find the.
I've told you.
He's got a shorter leash than everyone else.
Yes,
How's that?
That I agree that he probably has a shorter leash. But I said every time that he's had his shot, and some things that happen to him are unpredictable. That's not his. But a lot of things that have happened to him is injuries. Some you can't control because I think he got a concussion. Some he's got repetitive. And remember what Laurent Courtois
Saliba
said.
got a concussion too.
No, but Saliba is playing where he's a known, consistent, guaranteed starter.
Yeah.
Well, Jules did not win that spot, if you could say.
I hear you. Saliba plays in a position. Saliba's played great, by the way. Like I said, I want to reiterate that, okay? Saliba plays in a position where, because of the nature of the position, no one would know this better than you. You receive the ball often.
Yeah.
Jules Anthony plays in a position where you're dependent on your teammates a lot to get the ball. And if they're not getting it to you, well, then you have to do a lot of the dirty work and come back and try and get it. And then all of a sudden, it's a little bit harder, right?
Yeah, but the difference is, look, if you look at how, if I understand what Laurent Courtois said about positions, because we all said, how come Piet and Wanyama are not playing together? Because he deemed Piet and Wanyama to be the number 6s. And he wants another player that's a number 8 in profile. That doesn't mean that player is necessarily 8, but might be, and that was Choinière and Saliba. And maybe at a certain extent, Rida Zouir, who, for other reasons, didn't make it himself also.
He scored on the weekend, eh? Scored, eh? Rida?
Yeah, I'm happy for him that he's getting the confidence. Because
I love that kid.
All these kids, look, that you talk about Jules Anthony, you talk about Nathan Saliba, you talk about, for me, of course, I want them to play, but they're not all going to play for the CF Montreal. That's the reality of the nature of not just the business, it's just the law of probability. So Nathan is in the midfield, where he was deemed, if I'm correct, even in preseason, to really be fighting for his starting 11th position. So already, when you come into the mind of the coach,
because Choinière was on the team at the time,
yeah,
and he was looking to go back into the midfield. Yes,
and Saliba was like, he could be a starter. Well, Jules Anthony wasn't clear-cut starter at the beginning.
Yeah,
and this is not to take a knock on Jules Anthony, because people, it's not to criticize. It's just situationally things happen. Because Laurent Courtois said at the beginning of the year, I love Jules Anthony Vincent. I think what he brings, but I don't know if he can last more than 60 minutes. So for him, he has a question mark. Even though we all know they take out forwards now 60 minutes in, 70 minutes in. No forward plays 90 minutes anymore almost. So he gets categorized.
Did you see Wilfred Nancy remove the player after 8 minutes?
Yeah, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, that's.
I saw that in 8 minutes he was a liability. At the end of the day, people were like,
he cost a goal.
Yeah, but it's just not that. It was 3-2. And you're like, man, and I know, from what I know from Wilfred, there's certain areas of the field you can't be too risky. And he was trying to be that in a 3-2 game.
The player was trying an individual play, like probably about 10 yards from his box, right? And in his own defensive third, Wilfred didn't like it. Led to a giveaway, and Wagner ends up narrowing the lead to 3-2. And
but it's not just that. When you look at the 8 minutes, understand what Wilfred sees. He's like, he didn't give the ball here. He's triggered. He's trying to do something that I know in the game plan. That's not where I ask you to do things.
He was playing a complicated brand of soccer for Wilfred, who likes to play simple soccer, Guardiola style.
Exactly, simple soccer, and that's why that's why when you come into teams that play a certain way, that doesn't mean you're not a good player, but maybe your free style of play doesn't fit to something that's very structured. Or he was in St. Louis, where he was very dynamic and go forward and make mistakes. Well, Wilfred likes to have a team that has complete control of the game and lessens the mistakes that he can make.
Hey, Pat, in ending, and this has been a lot of fun, but look, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, because I know you tweeted it, Toronto FC second half of the season, 17 games, 4 wins, 12 loss, 1 tie. I had a chance to hear Christian Jack on One Soccer who said,
I heard that too.
You saw Christian Jack said Lorenzo Insigne cannot play another game for Toronto FC. He who was a huge disappointment. Several coaches have tried to get him to play his best soccer. It has not worked out. You heard Coach Herdman obviously was not a fan of Insigne going to get Messi's jersey at the end of the game after Insigne couldn't play more than a couple of minutes, and Toronto FC were lost a big game, now eliminated from a play-in spot in front of their fans. Look, if it's something you're going to do, probably you should probably do that in the dressing room, right, or in the corridor or whatever, but not with all the cameras on you. But I think the big question is going to be who's going to go out and go out and acquire a player who has a contract of about $13 million. So Insigne and Bernardeschi are paid $20 million in salary. $20 million. Insigne by himself makes more money than the entire CF Montreal team on salary. And Gabriel Gervais has told us in the past, it's not because you spend the most money that you're going to have a better season. So he'll use Toronto as the example. And some members of the media have said you have to spend a lot of money if you want to have a success. And we'll use Columbus and Inter Miami and LAFC as those examples, right? But your thoughts on Toronto FC falling short with that kind of payroll?
The interesting part is a lot of people, because when I tweeted, Copa America killed us, but most of your starters were there for the rest of the season and you still didn't win. And if I'm correct, Jonathan missed 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
And it started off really well. So we're like, wow. In May, they were 4th. They had 24 points. They finished, now they think they took 13 points in more than half of the season.
That's crazy.
So at the end of the day, we all know the reality of trying to make, I love Bernardeschi. I said it since he arrived there. I said, I think he's the guy should be on 14 million. And the other, because he seems to be creating things. You see, he has his moments, blunders, red cards, but he's probably the guy expected goals who creates the more chances.
He's a difference maker. He's a difference maker.
Well, Insigne, and it's nice that you mentioned Christian Jack, because you can see he had a tweet now where he pulled out the stats where when Insigne is on the field and the team is trailing, they still lost. So he doesn't bring that X factor that he's supposed to.
He doesn't run, Pat. He doesn't run. You're playing with a player less when you're playing with him. When they defend with a player less, he doesn't run. And I hate to say this,
but Miami has one guy who doesn't run, but at the end of the day, when he shoots, he scores.
Well, you're right about that. But he also, when he doesn't, he just still draws so much attention to him, and it opens up spaces for other players. But look, some Italian players at the end of their career, they're known to have this reputation of being tourists, and it's a very strong label. And I'm sorry to do this, but Insigne looks like he's come over to just to be on vacation here. It's too bad. I think it's a strong point by Christian Jack. I agree with him. You have to get back that team culture, and you won't get it back with Insigne. You won't get it back.
You mentioned it, but I think also it's because some people realize that you remember Didier Drogba. He said it. MLS is not an easy league. I played in Premier League. It's not an easy league. Alessandro Nesta said the same thing. Doesn't mean it's a greater league than a Premier League, but it's probably a much more physically demanding league where, and this is not stereotypical, but in Italy, it's very tactical. Everything is fine-tuned. I was listening to Atalanta coach saying here, man-to-man, you're playing different types of tactics where a lot of other teams kind of play the same mode.
Gasperini.
Yeah, and then Insigne, and unfortunately, when he arrived, everybody went the next Jovinko. And I remember I said, he's coming in where people are going to expect him to have the same stats as Jovinko, and he will not be the same type of player.
And you're right. It's a different kind of league because it's a physical league, because it's an athletic league. And so when you think players are backing off and they're going to give you time and space, they're not, because it's go
always in your behind.
And
said it also.
Insigne is used to being able to put a ball where someone's going to make a run, or used to receiving a ball that someone will give him. And most of the players in MLS probably, well, some of them can't do some of the things that are probably
the cast of who brings him the ball, I think was good. I will admit they haven't found a number 9 where Bernardeschi, and I'm pretty sure you guys, if you see the stats, how many times Bernardeschi gives the ball to the number 9 or Insigne gives the ball to the number 9. They give the ball to each other, but they don't give the ball to the next guy, meaning that guy, they haven't found the guy who can actually create more room for them, or be the guy who maybe runs a lot and exactly maybe pressures and alleviates some of the defensive work for them.
Yeah.
So that's another part, because Jonathan Osorio is good. Longstaff is a good player. Those guys in midfield do the job. It's just, I think they just couldn't find the match to find something that suits Insigne. Because Bernardeschi, for me, they should keep him. Insigne, they should try to find a loan, somebody to loan him or buy out his contract if they're able to.
Saudi Arabia. Pat, October 19 is decision day in the MLS.
Yes.
CF Montreal is guaranteed a play-in spot with a tie, or obviously a win, or even if they lose, if Philadelphia and Atlanta also lose, CF Montreal are in. So those are the scenarios. Now, the play-in, hopefully CF Montreal wins and DC United ties or loses. CF Montreal gets the 8th play-in spot, so that the wild card game will be played at Stade Saputo on Tuesday, October 22nd. And should they win that, the winner will travel to Miami to take on Lionel Messi and friends in a 2 out of 3, with game 1 going on Friday, October 25th. And I am crossing my fingers that CF Montreal will get that play-in spot, that CF Montreal will get the 8th spot and play it at home, that CF Montreal will win that play-in game, and then the tickets to Florida, the airline tickets, do not go up, and I can get tickets for that game versus Miami, because I'd love to go watch that game and spend a weekend in South Florida. Why not? Why not? That would be pretty cool.
The second leg, normally it's 2 games. So they could be a home game in Montreal, if I'm correct.
There will be a home game. Yeah, it's a best. It's 2 out of 3.
So it's a game in Miami and then a game in Montreal, and maybe a third game if it's all leveled at that time. So
correct. It's
a be 2 home games in the playoffs.
That would be, the city of Montreal needs it, right? It would be an incredible buzz, right, for a season that has been.
Montreal needs it. I think the
roller coaster
Montreal would need it after the roller coaster year in terms of drama, everything that comes around. As we said, a lot of people said this season is over. This is the worst season of the year. Well, now they're looking at another game like last year, where if they have a result, they could make it. And if they do make it, they could potentially have home games where you could go to Stade Saputo and live a playoff game at home, which would be a great buzz for the end of the season, and probably also preparing stuff for the next year, where the team has a lot more experience of this end of the season.
On a night where they're planning on honoring that 1994 championship team. So their extra motivation to actually come out with a big result in front of members of the alumni and, of course, players and staff who have marked, the organization's history for a very, very long time. Pat, it was so much fun to talk soccer with you again and to have you on the SIG podcast, CF Montreal Talk. I was so happy when you sent me that text message saying I can work the podcast today because I don't have a course today. Do me a favor. Quit your course.
Yeah, it'd be great, but I want to keep growing myself. So, but always a pleasure to exchange with you and talk soccer and talk CF Montreal.
Good for you, Patrice Bernier, who always tries to grow himself from a soccer perspective. Others grow themselves a different way. Marinaro.
As they say, it's expansional. It doesn't have any directions.
Marinaro, the SIG podcast, CF Montreal Talk. Thanks for watching, everyone. Merci, Patrice.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the SIG podcast, CF Montreal Talk on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.